work at OG&E. I'm here to talk to you today about boring stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I'm here to talk to you guys today about cybersecurity. I hope to be able to present it in a way that's interesting and not just bore you guys and tell you guys unfun stuff. So I've got some good stuff in here for you. But yeah, so let's get started. So a little bit about me. I'm a system security analyst at OG&E. I'm married. I have a wife and a daughter. As you can see over there on the right side, that's my daughter. We went to Orange Leaf last night for her first time, so she got froyo. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but I do live here in Oklahoma now. My hobbies are fishing, gaming, fantasy football, a lot of different stuff. I'm also learning the piano, so I try to stay well-rounded. So a little bit about my career journey. I know you guys are Westmore, so you might not like UConn, but I went to UConn High School, played baseball there, National Honor Society, all that kind of stuff. And after that, I graduated, went to Rogers State University, which is in Claremore, Oklahoma, up by Tulsa. I was in the honors program there and basically had to do a cybersecurity degree and an English degree at the same time, which was not fun, but it was good. And then I graduated from there with my bachelor's. After I graduated, it was right around COVID 2021. So a little bit harder to get in the workforce, but I was fortunate to get a job with a company called Plow Technologies. It's an automation company, and I basically was just doing scripting and stuff like that. After about 6 months there, I was able to get in at OG&E in the position I am now. I'd started out as an associate, which is basically the lowest tier, and you are able to get in with no experience in that position. So it was a very fortunate thing to get because that is not a common thing in cybersecurity. You usually have to have some experience to get in. So yeah, I'm going to move on. Just a quick survey for you guys. How many people are actually interested in maybe looking at a cybersecurity career one day?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 or so.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. All right. So going to dive deep into my job. As I said before, I'm a system security analyst. That is kind of just what we call it. Every company has their own different names for positions. So the base name that you'll see for most companies is just cybersecurity analyst. But yeah, so I'm on the security operations team at OG&E. At OG&E, we have 4 cybersecurity teams total. Across companies, that cybersecurity can range from one team of cybersecurity people that do a lot of different things in cybersecurity to the biggest companies like Microsoft will have a team that just does one thing, has a lot of people, and there will be a lot of teams for many different roles in cybersecurity. So as I said, we're kind of in the middle there. We have 4 teams. So I'm operations. We have a team called risk and governance, and their role is to kind of assess risk of vendors, assess risk of our company, and stuff like that. And then they kind of govern our policy. We have another group called identity, which they're the ones who handle accounts and Active Directory and all of that kind of permission stuff within the company. And then the last team we have is kind of not a typical team in cybersecurity, but we call it our security enablement. And they are basically a physical security team that enables my team to do our job and prevents us from having to do physical things like standing up new servers and that kind of stuff. All right, so I'm going to kind of go deeper into what I do on the daily, because I feel like when I was in your position that a lot of people that did these kind of talks, they just kind of gave a general thing about the field. And I want to kind of give you guys what the job is actually like to see if it kind of piques your interest and pushes you towards wanting to pursue this career. So the main thing that we do on my team is we investigate alerts. So we have many different tools that are constantly monitoring our network devices and users to make sure that we have users not doing bad things, we have devices not compromised by adversaries, and other things like that. So we have a tool called a Security Information and Event Management, the SIM. And what that does is it brings in logs from all of our servers, devices, firewalls across the entire company, and it kind of centralizes them into one place. And so that tool is very useful for building alerts off of activity because we have access to data from all across the company. And so in there, we're able to investigate alerts. We're able to filter on what kind of activity we're looking for in an incident, like IP addresses, hashes, usernames. And it's really our central tool that we're in every day. And it's pretty cool. I wish I could show you guys an example of our tools, but they are technically sensitive information. So I wasn't able to get you guys any cool screenshots or anything. But you could probably go kind of look into that yourself and see what those may look like. But we also have our antivirus tool, which, as you guys probably know, antivirus is just a program on your computer that has definitions on it that is constantly looking for known malware out in the world. So that reports to our SIM, and we get alerts on that. We also have endpoint detection and response, which is shortened to EDR. And that is a program that is also on your computer. And it's kind of looking at the processes that are going on your computer. And it's monitoring for activity that is not normal or is known malicious from other security vendors. So a lot of the time when we're working these alerts, we will get a lot of false positives. So these are alerts that come up. They throw up big, scary language like, oh, malware detected on this device, bad things happening. And then you will go investigate it, look deeper into the logs, look at the IP addresses, the usernames, what's going on with the traffic. And then you'll find out that it's just a normal user doing normal work, and it just happens to look like something bad. So that's something that we have to deal with a lot in our space. And we have to automate to get around that and try and filter out the false positives so that we have a higher rate of our alerts actually being bad stuff. Which, since I have been at OG&E, there has been very little bad stuff because the amount of tools that we have stacked on top of each other are really good at stopping things before they're able to kick off. So alert investigation ties directly into incident response, which is another main role of my team that fortunately I have not had to do a lot of in a real aspect because we haven't had very many actual bad things happen. And when we have, they've been really small and not a big deal at all. But the cool part about the job is you do get to do exercises, kind of like tabletop exercises that are just a practice of what a real incident would be like so that you and your team know how to work together, you know how to investigate as a team and delegate things off. And then when the actual real incidents come, you have some practice. And so I don't know if anybody knows D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, or those kind of things, but the tabletop exercises are kind of like that, where you have somebody who is running the exercise, they throw a fake incident at you, and then you and your team have to brainstorm what you would do and tell the person what you guys did, and then they'll give you new information as to what you've discovered. So yeah, those are the two main roles of us every day, but there is other things that we do when the alert queue is down to nothing and when we're not doing tabletops. So a major thing that we do is we call it testing and validation. The coolest testing and validating that we do is called adversary emulation. We have a tool that actually is on our network, and we can customize it and bring in campaigns that are provided to us by the vendor. And what these do is they emulate what a real malware actor would be doing. So they will run scripts that would actually be ran by threat actors out in the space, and they do the same things that a malware would do, but it's it's called defanged malware, to where it doesn't actually reach out to anybody who is malicious. And so what this allows us to do is test how well our tools are working for the threats that are out there and that are active in the real world. So there are a type of threat called a zero-day attack. You guys have probably heard that term before. And that what a zero-day is it is a malware exploit that has not been seen by anybody before. And the people that it is used on for the first time, those are kind of considered the zero-day exploited people. And so the antivirus and EDR and other tools will not detect it because it is something that has never been seen before. So we try to test zero-day events when they have been discovered and are brought into the catalog of our vendor, and we will build offenses and rules based off of the stuff if we did not alert on it and if we would not have caught it if it was a real thing. So that's kind of one of the coolest things that we get to do in my team, is handle basically real malware, but in a safe environment. Another thing that we do is that's a little less fun, but is very necessary, is we do rule tuning. So as I told you guys before, we have automations that we do that will get rid of the false positives and allow us to see the real threats in the forefront instead of having to deal with false positives all day. So when we get a certain alert a few times and we know that it's a false positive, we'll try to tune it out and make sure that that exact scenario of false positive won't fire again. All right, so how many people have heard of phishing or smishing? Sweet. So for anyone who doesn't know what phishing is, it's pretty important that you do, because you could be a victim of it. Phishing is when somebody sends you a malicious email with the intent of compromising an account, device, or doing some other harm to you or an organization. And so what they'll do, as you can see over in this picture over here, let me get this pointer going. Is that working? Cool. So this is a phishing email that Microsoft kind of threw out there to show examples. So a lot of times you'll see grammar mistakes in the subject or in the paragraph. You will see them claiming to be something like Microsoft Office Team as the display name, but then when you actually look at the domain of the email, it is not actually who they say they are. They'll also do a quote unquote attention grabber, or something to pull you in and get you to think that it's real, like suspicious activity in this example, or they will try to tell you something that gets a sense of urgency in your brain and kind of panics you and stops you from thinking clearly. As you can see here, it says they create a sense of urgency with this email, and then what they will do is they'll obfuscate their links, which means that they will put normal text like click here to verify your account, and then they'll hide the link that it actually goes to behind that text, and then you won't see where you're going unless you hover over it. So that's a good way to check if an email is legitimate, is to, before you click on the link, if you're on a phone, you can hold down on it and it'll tell you what the link actually is. Or if you're on a computer, you can just hover over it and it'll tell you what the link is. But they will very commonly tell you that a link says one thing, and then the actual site that it goes to has nothing to do with the site that they're presenting. So yeah, so that's what phishing is. There's also a type called smishing, which is SMS phishing, aka text. And so you will get texts, which some of you might be getting now, that there's a campaign going around right now. It's typically China trying to compromise United States citizens, people, and they're sending texts that happen to look like a Pike Pass that we use here in Oklahoma. And they pretend to be the company, the Pike Pass company, and they will say that you have unpaid tolls, and they're just asking for $6.99. They try to do a small number so that it doesn't trip you off, and then they're getting people to pay it, so they're just continuing to try and get money. Sometimes money is what they're looking for. Sometimes it's compromising a device. Sometimes it's compromising a device to compromise an organization. So it is a very prevalent threat, and it's one of the hardest ones for us to handle because we can't babysit everybody and help them to not fall for these things. So the way that we try to mitigate that is education of employees. So here at OG&E, we have a product that we use that actually sends out test phishing emails to people. And so it'll look kind of like this. It looks pretty accurate. It looks real. And we are basically trying to get our employees to be careful of every email that they see and to actually look at the details of it and to make sure that they don't fall victim to emails. And so that kind of keeps people on edge in a way and has them being careful when they're responding to emails, clicking links, opening PDFs and stuff like that. So another part of the job that has to deal with this is responding to emails that people report. We do have a lot of emails that are automated out. Like if someone reports an email that's from the real Microsoft email, they'll just get an automatic reply and tell them that the email is good. But there is a lot of the time where there's emails that we've never seen before and that I or someone on my team has to manually look at and confirm as a good email. And so that's something that is part of my daily workflow. I constantly am going back and checking and making sure that I'm returning to employees the emails that they've reported, because sometimes it is something legitimate that they need to respond to rather quickly. And as I said earlier, this is another time where we try to automate as much as we can and make it to where what we are seeing is something that is new or something that is malicious. So something interesting that we deal with a decent amount is having to deal with compromises with phishing emails. So a lot of time we will have people report, or not people, but other companies that we use as vendors or are and partnered with in various ways. They'll send my team an email and let us know that they had a user named Sally Joe who was compromised, and that any emails that they sent within a certain window are malicious. And so one thing that I will have to do when that happens is I will have to use a couple of our tools and actually look for and make sure that any emails from that person in that time period are not in anybody's inboxes to try and prevent anyone from falling victim. And so that specific type of attack is called a credential phishing. And what they will do is they'll usually present kind of like this email here in the picture. They'll present a email that looks like Microsoft or Amazon Azure or something like that, and they'll make the page look identical, and they'll get them to put in their username and password for their email. And then they will use that username and password to log into that person's email. And then they will then send their phishing email to everybody in their address book to try and gain that notoriety that the person has. And so a lot of times people will fall for phishing emails when they come from a source that they're used to emailing with on the day to day, because they recognize them and they do not see them as a threat and their guardrails are down. So that's actually, I would say, the most common type of successful phishing we see is when they're able to compromise someone who's not careful, and then that person then spreads it almost like a virus in a way to other people, because they may send it to 200 people and then 5 of those people get compromised, and then those 5 people, they log into their account and send it to another 200, and then it just kind of cascades out into a really big wide net, and then you end up having hundreds of people across different companies across different states who are compromised. And then they will try to use those credentials to get into the people's other Microsoft applications and start stealing data and stuff like that. Okay, so this is kind of a slide and talk that I wanted to give on professional development. I am relating it to cybersecurity, but it can also be used in other fields as well. But a big part of cybersecurity is developing yourself and your understanding and learning as the space grows. So one really cool thing that pretty much everybody in the cybersecurity space typically gets to do, unless you're at a really small company and they don't have the funds to, but most of the time cybersecurity people get to go to cybersecurity conferences. And so these are really cool. Your company will usually send you, they'll pay for your flights, they'll pay for your hotel, they'll pay for your food, and then you'll get to go meet other people that are in your space, do some networking, maybe get business cards of other people so you can talk about stuff when you get back to the jobs. And you get to see some really cool technologies from companies. You'll get to learn new emerging threats and new emerging technologies. AI is a big one right now that you'll see at a lot of cybersecurity conferences. I'm going to get to go to Black Hat, which the top picture in the slide is from 2024 Black Hat, but it's a conference in Vegas, which is a pretty cool conference. And you have the highest profile cybersecurity people around the world coming and talking, and you get to meet some really cool top tier people. So it's pretty fun. Another big professional development thing is training. So I had the pleasure of getting sent to Idaho, which was a pretty cool experience. They sent me to Idaho National Labs, which is a cybersecurity group that is funded by the government, and I actually got to basically learn how to hack so that I could be an ethical hacker in a way and think like a hacker so that I can prevent them. And so I got to go through a bunch of courses that taught me different ways of hacking network, getting physical access to a device, stuff like that. They even had some pretty cool escape rooms that they had us do, but it wasn't your normal escape room. It was actually like you had to use the hacking techniques that you had learned to make it out of the escape room. So it's pretty cool. And at the end of it, we actually did what we call a red blue exercise. So blue stands for the blue team, which is the good guys, the defenders, and then red team are the hackers or the bad guys. And so there was about, I think, 12 people that were red team that were the hackers. And then there was about 40 of us that had to pretend like we were a part of a company. And we got to basically do a position that we wouldn't do in the real world. So I joined the firewall team in this fake company, and my job was to implement firewall rules to stop the red team when they were breaking in and doing bad things. So you get to do some really cool stuff in this sphere, and you get to go to maybe places you haven't been before. I had never been to Idaho before, so it's kind of cool to get to go there. And in your free time after the trainings, you'll usually just drive around with whatever coworkers you went with and just go to sightseeing and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a little mini vacation that gets paid for you, and it's pretty fun time. Usually will get to do a training a year, but I haven't gotten to do one yet this year. So yeah. And then another thing that you'll get to do in cybersecurity a lot of the time is be a part of exterior organizations. So OG&E, we're a part of MRO, which is the Midwest Reliability Organization. It's a group that is under FERC, under NERC, which is under FERC, which is a federal regulatory agency. And the MRO is basically the Midwest from Manitoba, Canada is actually in it. And then it's all the states kind of down to Oklahoma. And then there's one company in Texas, I think, that's in it. But what you actually get to do with MRO is you get to join calls with other people from other critical infrastructure groups across the region. And you kind of get to brainstorm, work with them and see kind of what threats they're seeing. You get to work in tandem with them and just really help build each other up and get experience and get exposure to things that maybe your company's not seeing. And so within MRO, there's a group called the SAC, which is the Security Advisory Council. And there's a sub-council of it called the SAC-TF, which is the SAC Threat Forum. And I actually have the pleasure of being on the SAC-TF Council. And so for the last 8 weeks, I've actually been running a meeting for about 100 to 200 people a week. And we just sit there and we talk about threats that we're seeing. We talk about maybe compromises that other people in the region have had, and they'll tell us what happened, and they'll tell us what they did to mitigate it and kind of what indicators of compromise there are so that we can be prepared for things that other people have fallen victim to. And so that's a pretty cool experience. It's helped me to become more well-rounded having to run those meetings. It's helping me to do this presentation today because I've had to present and talk to a lot of people in that already. So yeah, that's a pretty good thing. That's not necessarily something that's just to the cybersecurity space, but if you get a chance when you are out in the workforce one day to join some sort of group that's exterior, it's a pretty cool experience. And you get to be exposed to people who maybe don't live near you, and you get to see perspectives from people that aren't in your region. Like I have a lot of people that I've met that are from Minnesota, which is where MRO's stationed out of. And the other cool thing is I get to fly up to Minnesota 2 to 3 times a year and do in-person meetings as well. And then a major thing of professional development in cybersecurity is certifications. So there are certifications that you can get, and you can get any certification you want for the most part, as long as there isn't prerequisites that you don't meet. So recommendation for anybody who does want to be in cybersecurity, I do recommend that when you're in college that you look at studying for the CompTIA Security Plus, and I can put that in the chat, or have Tallo send that out to your guys' teacher afterwards. Or I can give your teacher a little document of things for you guys, so that you can have that and not have to be like, what was he talking about? But there are certifications that I do recommend that you get in college if you can, to try and kind of elevate yourself above other people, because having a degree and then also some certifications will really help you. All right, so moving away from me and my experience and just kind of broadening out to the industry, a major thing with the space is college is a pretty important thing. You can get into the space without a degree if you don't think college is going to be your thing and you think that it would be something you don't want to do. But in that space, I would recommend getting a lot of certifications, which will help you to be able to land a job that you want to. But some great degrees that I recommend are anything cybersecurity. That's a no-brainer. Anything that's a cybersecurity focused one is going to help you get into the space. But there are degrees that aren't technically cybersecurity that will also work. So there's computer science, information technology, software engineering, and information systems. Those are kind of just general names of degrees. Other certain colleges name them differently. My degree is in cybersecurity, information, and assurance is what my college called it. So those are just kind of the broad terms for the degree types, but it really depends on where you go. OU will probably have a different name than OSU, than UCO, than Redlands, whatever you do. A major thing in the field is having technology job experience. So one thing that I did not do in college that I wish I had was find a job that is technology related. I kind of just did odds and ends stuff here and there. I did heating and air a couple summers with my dad's company. I worked at a grocery store during college. I worked at a construction company for a summer. I just kind of did whatever, I wanted to do. And I wish I had found some sort of part-time job that was computer centric, like a help desk job, or my university had a student IT job that you could do, and I should have applied for it and done it. And I didn't even think about the ramifications of not doing a technology job. So if you can, I do recommend you try to find a tech job that you could do in college. There are plenty that are lower level, easier, simple stuff. Like the biggest one's a help desk job. You just got to learn like Windows and how to do generic stuff like open a program and stuff. And you will basically be dealing with people who are technologically not inclined, and they'll call in and say, I can't delete this file. And then you'll show them how to right click and delete the file. So there's some simple jobs like that you guys will definitely be able to do, being a generation that is very computer inclined and it's in your everyday life. And then those jobs help give you the resume booster for companies to choose you over maybe somebody else. And then, as I said in the last slide, certifications, those are a pretty big thing in the space. I actually don't have a ton of certifications myself. I just have a couple because I was hired before I finished, before I got any more than two. And my organization, they're like, you don't have to get any more certifications if you don't want to. And so technically, now that I'm in, I could stay stagnant if I wanted to, but I don't want to because it is a ever-growing sphere and you really need to stay up to date on cybersecurity. So I'm currently working on 2 certifications, but those 2 certifications I'm working on are actually for a master's degree that I'm going to be starting in July. So highly recommend this CompTIA Security Plus, like I said before. Another good one is the CompTIA Network Plus, which is a certification that will help you understand networking, which is a very big foundational thing for cybersecurity. And then there are some other ones that are good ones to get to, and they're not hard. It's just about learning basics of cybersecurity. If you are in a cybersecurity degree, you'll already be learning the concepts that the certification wants you to know. So it really helps you to be able to take that test and be prepared for it. So those certifications have a book that you can usually just get on Amazon. You can read the book. There'll be practice tests in it, and then you have to pay $200-300 to take the test, and then you will have the certification, and then you can put that on your resume. And companies really like to see them because it is a way for them to know that you understand the basics, or if you get harder ones, that you understand a deeper level stuff. So that'll really help you with getting into the space originally. And then while you're already in the space, it helps you to move up and to get promotions, to get raises, to just move to a different company, maybe get a better job. And so, yeah, highly recommend always trying to grow, always trying to build your understanding, and it will help you in your job and moving up. Another major thing that I would recommend in college especially, but also when you're in the workforce, is networking. So you probably hear that term a lot, and I'm not talking about computer networking. I'm talking about networking with other human beings. So a major thing in college that I did that I was glad that I did is I went to events that were for my degree and my department, the technology department at college. I met other people. I met people who were in the same degree as me. I met professors who usually in the cybersecurity space will be also working a cybersecurity job. A lot of your classes in cybersecurity are usually online, and the professor is an expert who has been doing this for 10-15 years, which is a really cool benefit. But it's really good to network with those people and to show them who you are, show them that you're reliable, a good worker, and hardworking, and they'll usually want to recommend you to people that they know at their company or another company, or help you find a job whenever it actually comes to that time. So highly recommend trying to get those feelers out and meet people, and that'll really help you in your professional career later on. The job that I have here at OG&E, I actually met he's no longer here, but he was the supervisor of our cybersecurity risk and governance and identity teams. And so I met him. We hit it off. We liked a lot of the same sports teams. Got his phone number. He would kind of recommend to me, hey, I think you should do this certification, this kind of stuff. And so that really helped me to get ready for the job. And then when it came time, he told me the job was open, and I applied for it. And he wasn't allowed to, necessarily recommend me because that's a ethical thing, but he was at least able to help me find the right job to apply for. And then I was able to apply for it, interview, and was fortunate enough to be hired. Okay, so professional advice that I would like to give to you guys that I think is something that I've learned over time and I think is important. And this goes for cybersecurity, and it also goes for any job that you could possibly do. The number one thing that I can recommend to you guys is be reliable. Everything that I do in my job, I try to do it as quickly as I can, and I try to do it with attention to detail and do it right the first time. I've noticed as the years have gone on that people tend to become less and less reliable. And so if you can be reliable and just show that you will do the job do it well and that they can rely on you, you will be considered the cream of the crop and they will love you and you'll move up and it will drastically help you in your career. And that doesn't just go for a job. That can also go for a sports team or whatever you do. It's a really, really good thing that is helpful in all aspects. It really helps as well to build great relationships within your group. And then money's not always the biggest thing, but you will end up getting raises and doing better because of your reliability. Another thing that kind of ties with being reliable is go the extra mile. A lot of people in the workforce, they just kind of want to do what their job is and that's it. And that's perfectly fine. You can do that if that's what you'd like. But if you really want to move up and you want to build great relationships and you want to grow, then I highly recommend that you're doing more than what is expected of you. So my job, my level is I'm a staff level now. I started as an associate and I got to move to a staff level pretty quickly because I focused on learning and growing my knowledge. And then I also, in my job, went above and beyond what the associate level was expected to do. And that allowed them to justify moving me up quicker. And I'm looking like I'm on track to be able to move up to a senior position in a couple years, which would be just 5 years in the field. And I attribute that to working hard and doing more than what is expected of me. So on the daily, I am just supposed to do what my job is, but I try to always look at what my job is and find ways to improve it, which is typically the role of the seniors. And because of that, it is having them view me in a way that is easier to justify moving me up. So it's something that I've seen as very rewarding for me, and I highly recommend it for you in a career and anything else in life as well. And then last but not least, communicating effectively. This is a thing that a lot of people are lacking in nowadays in the workforce. And me and a couple of my team members were always frustrated because we feel like we're talking to a brick wall when we're talking to other people. And we're like, how else can I communicate this to somebody? Because sometimes people just don't communicate well. So I highly recommend that when you are doing your job and you are working with people within your group or without your group and other groups, that you try to communicate in ways that are very generic and specific, so that's an oxymoron, that are very broad but at the same time specific, so that people will understand what you're talking about. And giving them context is always a huge thing. So we'll usually have tickets brought to us and someone will say, hey, I need this done, but they will give very little information and very little context, and it makes it hard for us to do our job. So if you can be a person who is bringing things to people and giving them specifics and guiding them in the way that you need them to do their job, they're going to love you. They're going to recommend you to other people. They're going to want to work with you over others because they know that they can rely on you and that they can work well with you. So, all right. So, how to learn more about this career. So Tallo is a great resource. They have resources for you to explore the career and anything related to it. I recommend Cyberseek. It's a site that I found that actually gives you, if you go to the site, it's a very generic web page, and it's got a tree of kind of tier 1 jobs, tier 2 jobs, tier 3 jobs, and then it shows you the different fields and what you can go into in cybersecurity and how that will allow you to move up. So it's a really cool site. And then, as it says there, ask caring adults that you know if they know anybody in the field, because that networking thing is a huge deal and it can really help you.
Thank you to everyone for sharing your classroom with us today. And thank you, Brendan, for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you all.